In 1955, Ernest Borgnine won an Oscar for playing a gentle butcher in Marty. But now, his daughter reveals what happened behind that iconic role, a shocking family betrayal, a studio's attempt to destroy his career, and a dark secret he kept hidden for decades. From hidden feuds to dangerous on-set rivalries, this is the story that's been buried for half a century. Ernest Borgnine was born on January 24, 1917, in Hamden, Connecticut. His parents, Anna and Camillo, were Italian immigrants who brought a rich cultural heritage with them. Interestingly, his mother's father was a nobleman, Count Paolo Boselli. When Ernest was 2, his parents separated. He and his mother moved to Italy for 5 years, where he learned about his family's roots. In 1923, they returned to Connecticut, and the family reunited. They decided to change their last name from Marino to Borgnine, which later helped Ernest stand out in Hollywood. Growing up in North Haven, Ernest loved sports, especially boxing, but he never showed any interest in acting. His early life, shaped by both Italian culture and working-class America, gave him a unique perspective that would later influence his roles. At 18, Ernest joined the U.S. Navy in 1935. He spent 10 years there, including serving during World War II. His first 6 years were spent on the destroyer USS Lamberton, where he rose to gunner's mate first class. He left the Navy in 1941 but re-enlisted in 1942 when the U.S. entered the war. During the war, he served in the Pacific and earned several medals for his service, like the Navy Good Conduct Medal and the World War II Victory Medal. His years in the Navy taught him discipline and gave him many experiences that later helped in roles like his character in McHale's Navy. His time in the military not only shaped who he was but also gave him stories and a sense of authority that would later come through in his acting. When the war ended, Ernest returned home in 1945. He didn't know what to do with his life and felt stuck working a factory job. One day, his mother gave him unexpected advice. She told him, "You love making people laugh. Why don't you try acting?" At first, it sounded like a crazy idea, but Ernest couldn't shake the thought. He later said it felt like a light had turned on inside him. Even though he didn't look like a typical actor, he was stocky with a gap-toothed grin. His mother saw something special in him. Her encouragement set him on a path that would change his life. Ernest decided to give acting a try and used the GI Bill to study at the Randall School of Drama in Hartford, Connecticut. He only studied there for 6 months, but it was enough to give him the basics he needed. His first role was in a school production of The Trojan Women, a powerful Greek tragedy. The story of war and loss deeply connected with Ernest because of his experiences in the Navy. He had thought about studying at Yale but chose Randall instead because he wanted to start acting right away. That decision paid off, as it quickly led him to work in theater. In 1949, Ernest got his first big break on Broadway in the play Harvey. He played a small role as a male nurse in the story about a man and his imaginary 6-foot rabbit. The role wasn't large, but it was a big step forward for Ernest. The play gave him a chance to work alongside experienced actors and learn the ropes of professional theater. Even though his part didn't get much attention, it prepared him for bigger opportunities. The skills he developed reacting to imaginary things on stage would later help him in film roles that required similar creativity. Ernest Borgnine's road to success in Hollywood started in 1951 when he acted in a movie called China Corsair. It was a small, low-budget film about smuggling and adventure on the high seas. Borgnine played a character named Hu Chong, who owned a gambling club. The movie wasn't very popular, but it was still a big step for him. Before this, Borgnine had only worked in theater and TV. That same year, he worked hard and appeared in 2 more films, The Whistle at Eaton Falls and The Mob. These small roles showed how determined he was to make it in the film industry. Because of his rough looks, strong build, and big, toothy grin, people often cast Borgnine as the bad guy. This was good because it gave him steady work, but it also meant he was stuck playing villains between 1951 and. In 1954, he acted in many westerns and tough guy roles. Some of his most famous roles from that time were in The Stranger Wore a Gun and Johnny Guitar. His ability to play scary characters reached its peak in the movie From Here to Eternity in 1953. In that film, he played Sergeant Fatso Judson, a cruel prison warden. One of his scenes, where he threatened Frank Sinatra's character Mayo, became very famous. He said, "I'm going to cut this wop's heart out." People found his performance unforgettable, and it helped him get noticed in Hollywood. The movie was a huge hit and won 8 Oscars. In 1955, Borgnine was cast as Marty Petty, a gentle, lonely butcher, for only $5,000. At that time, he was mostly known for playing villains like the Cruel Sergeant and From Here to Eternity. But this role was different. Marty wasn't mean or tough, he was gentle and kind. Borgnine took the part because he wanted to break away from his usual bad guy roles. He also loved the character of Marty, so even though the pay was low, he didn't care. This choice ended up changing his life forever. When Borgnine auditioned for Marty, everything clicked. It was August 12, 1954, and the film's writer and director were in the room, ready to see if he could bring Marty to life. Borgnine performed a scene where Marty talks about feeling unloved and unattractive. He poured his heart into it, drawing on his own feelings of rejection. When he finished, the room went silent. The director and writer had tears in their eyes. One of them even said, "Well, there's your Marty." It was a powerful moment that set the tone for the entire film. Borgnine brought so much honesty and vulnerability to the character that it made everyone believe in him. Marty wasn't supposed to be a big deal. The producers actually made the movie as a way to save money on taxes. They planned to make a cheap film, release it once, and write it off as a loss. But when they finished it and showed it to an audience, the reaction was incredible. People loved it. The film, which cost just $343,000 to make, went on to earn over $2 million. It became a surprise hit that no one saw coming. The movie was shot in just 18 days, which is really fast for any film. They filmed for 7 days in the Bronx to make it feel real, then finished the rest in Hollywood. Everyone had to work quickly, and most scenes were done in just 1 or 2 takes. Even though they rushed, the film turned out heartfelt and intimate, like it was telling a true story. This simple, honest style became one of the reasons people loved it so much. When Marty came out, it won over everyone. It even won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, the first time an American film had ever done that. Later, it got 8 Oscar nominations. On the big night in 1956, Borgnine won Best Actor. No one expected it. He was up against stars like James Dean and Spencer Tracy, but the audience erupted in applause when his name was called. Borgnine gave a short, emotional speech, thanking everyone who believed in him. His win proved that you didn't have to look like a typical movie star to touch people's hearts. Ernest Borgnine's performance in Marty changed his life and Hollywood itself. It showed that audiences wanted stories about real, relatable people. His $5,000 paycheck turned out to be one of the best deals in film history. The movie won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, and became a timeless classic. But there was one problem: now everyone saw Borgnine as Marty, the shy and gentle butcher. In just 18 months, he was offered 637 scripts, and almost all of them were for characters just like Marty. Borgnine didn't want to be stuck playing the same type of role forever, so he decided to turn down most of these offers. He wanted to prove that he could play many different kinds of characters. In 1956, he chose a very different role, playing a tough sergeant in Jubal. This was the complete opposite of Marty. But rejecting so many roles slowed down his career, and he lost a lot of money by saying no to offers that could have made him rich. Millions still believed it was the right choice, and by 1958, he was getting roles that showed he could do much more, like in The Vikings and The Badlanders. By 1962, Borgnine's career needed something new. Film roles were slowing down, so he took a chance on television, which led to McHale's Navy, a show that changed everything for him. At first, the show was planned as a drama, but the network decided to turn it into a comedy. Borgnine agreed because it gave him a chance to do something different. The show started in 1962 and became a huge hit. He played the funny and clever Lieutenant Commander McHale, and people loved him in the role. The show ran for 4 seasons, and Borgnine even got an Emmy nomination for it. During this time, he also acted in movies like The Flight of the Phoenix, showing he could balance both TV and film. At first, Borgnine didn't want to do TV. He thought of himself as a movie actor, and back then, TV wasn't seen as good for someone who had won an Oscar. Between 1957 and 1961, he turned down many TV roles, including some for shows that later became very popular, like The Untouchables. He even joked that he'd rather sell used cars than star in a TV series. But one day, a kid selling candy came to his house and didn't know who Borgnine was. When Borgnine asked if he knew James Arness from Gunsmoke, the kid got excited and said yes. That made Borgnine realize how powerful TV was. He changed his mind and asked his agent to find him a TV role. This decision led to McHale's Navy. McHale's Navy turned out to be a big success. It brought millions of viewers every week and made Borgnine a TV star. The show was so popular that it even inspired 2 movies where Borgnine played McHale again. Thanks to the show, Borgnine's career was stronger than ever. After it ended, he got more roles in both movies and TV. Between 1966 and 1975, he acted in 27 movies and appeared in 18 TV shows. People saw him as a versatile actor who could do both comedy and drama. In 1972, Borgnine's career got even bigger with the Poseidon Adventure. He was 55 years old and wanted to show he could take on different roles. The movie became a worldwide hit, earning over $125 million and becoming the highest-grossing film of 1973. Borgnine played Mike Rogo, a grumpy but brave police officer trying to survive a sinking ship. Audiences and critics loved his performance. Getting the role wasn't easy, though. It was first offered to another actor, George C. Scott, who said no. Borgnine had to work hard to prove he was the right choice, even agreeing to do a screen test. He got the role just 2 weeks before filming started. On set, Borgnine did many of his own stunts, like swimming through a flooded hallway. During one scene, his foot got stuck, and he almost drowned, but he freed himself and finished the shot. The filming was tough on everyone with long hours and injuries, but Borgnine kept the mood light. He told jokes and organized card games between takes. His role earned him a Golden Globe nomination and helped him land more big roles. The movie also started a trend of disaster films, and Borgnine became a favorite for these kinds of movies. One of the most talked about parts of the Poseidon Adventure was Borgnine's rocky relationship with Shelley Winters, his co-star. From the first day, they didn't get along. Winters played an older grandmother, and Borgnine, who was 3 years older than her, acted like she was much older, which upset her. Things got worse during an underwater scene. Winters trained hard for it, but Borgnine kept. Worrying she couldn't hold her breath long enough, she even argued with the director about it. Winters thought Borgnine was trying to ruin her performance, and they stopped talking off camera for weeks. The crew overheard them arguing a lot, but when the cameras rolled, they both acted professionally. Their performances were praised, and their characters worked well together. Years later, Borgnine wrote in his autobiography that he and Winters made peace after the movie. He admitted they didn't like each other during filming but respected each other's talent. Later in life, Borgnine surprised everyone by becoming a voice actor in SpongeBob SquarePants at 82 years old. He played Mermaid Man, a retired superhero, alongside his old co-star Tim Conway, who voiced Barnacle Boy. The show's creator, Steven Hillenburg, wrote the role just for him. Borgnine wasn't sure about doing a cartoon at first, but after reading the script, his deep voice fit the character perfectly. One of his most famous lines, "Evil," happened by accident when his voice cracked during recording. The producers loved it and kept it as a funny part of the character. Borgnine voiced Mermaid Man in 17 episodes over 13 years. His last recording was just months before he passed away in 2012 at age 95. Borgnine said he loved how kids recognized him as Mermaid Man and that it made him feel like a hero to a new generation. Ernest Borgnine's personal life was full of ups and downs. He was married 5 times over 6 decades, but his most famous marriage was to Broadway star Ethel Merman in 1964. They met, felt a strong attraction, and Borgnine proposed just 4 weeks later. Their wedding on June 27, 1964, was a huge event with 500 guests, including many Hollywood stars. But the marriage didn't last. After only 32 days, they separated on August 7. By November 18, they were officially divorced. People couldn't stop talking about how short their marriage was. Merman made fun of their marriage in her autobiography, including a chapter called My Marriage to Ernest Borgnine, but the page was blank. Borgnine said their personalities didn't match, and things got worse during their honeymoon in Europe. He said Merman became jealous when fans kept recognizing him and asking for autographs. This made her angry, and they argued a lot. One story, though it might not be true, says Borgnine played a prank on her during the honeymoon, and it went very wrong, adding to the drama. Their divorce became a big public event. Merman filed for divorce on August 21, 1964, claiming Borgnine had been cruel to her. Borgnine disagreed and said Merman had abandoned him. They fought in court over who was right and even over who would keep certain gifts, like Merman's expensive engagement ring. After months of arguing, the divorce was finalized on November 18, and Borgnine had to pay for Merman's legal fees. Their marriage was over, but the drama around it lasted much longer. After years of failed marriages, Borgnine found happiness with his 5th wife, Tova Tresnes. They met in 1972 on a blind date set up by friends. Even though Borgnine was 55 and Tova was 31, they liked each other right away. They got married on February 24, 1973, in a quiet ceremony in Las Vegas. This marriage was different from his others. Tova was independent and had her own successful business, a cosmetics company called Beauty by Tova. Borgnine supported her work, and she supported his acting career. They built their marriage on friendship and respect. They worked hard on their own careers but always made time for each other. Borgnine often said the secret to their happiness was giving each other space while staying close as a couple. Their love lasted 39 years until Borgnine died in 2012 at the age of 95. In his later years, he often said he wished he had met Tova earlier because she brought him real happiness. Borgnine's career was also marked by conflicts with co-stars and directors. On the set of The Wild Bunch, 1969, he clashed with William Holden over Holden's drinking, which Borgnine believed was disrupting the production. Their argument nearly turned physical. During The Dirty Dozen, 1967, Borgnine had tense encounters with Lee Marvin, who often drank heavily and caused trouble on set. One night, Marvin even challenged Borgnine to a fight, but Borgnine diffused the situation without violence. He also had difficult moments with directors while working on The Catered Affair, 1956. Borgnine suggested changes to a scene, which initially angered director Richard Brooks. However, Brooks later acknowledged Borgnine's ideas in front of the entire crew, showing how Borgnine's instincts sometimes earned respect even in tense situations. Borgnine loved working in television. He once said he preferred it over movies because being on TV felt more personal. In TV, you're in people's homes every week, he said. They get to know you and trust you. It was an unusual opinion for an Oscar-winning movie star, but it showed how much he valued staying connected to his audience. In 2009, Borgnine made history. At 92 years old, he was nominated for an Emmy for his guest role on ER. In the episode, he played a man whose wife was dying in the hospital. His performance was quiet and deeply emotional, lasting only 12 minutes, but it left a huge impact. At first, Borgnine had turned down the role. He joked that he was too old to hang out in emergency rooms, but when he read the script, he couldn't say no. The nomination shocked Hollywood, especially younger actors who didn't even know Borgnine was still working. It also highlighted how rare it was for older actors to get big roles. A study in 2010 showed that only 11% of TV roles went to actors over 60, making Borgnine's success at 92 even more incredible. Even as he got older, Borgnine didn't slow down. In 2010, at 93, he starred in the movie Red, alongside big stars like Bruce Willis and Helen Mirren. Around the same time, he was still voicing the character Mermaid Man on SpongeBob SquarePants, a role he loved until his death. He also kept acting in films, including Another Harvest Moon and The Man Who Shook the Hand of Vicente Fernandez. Borgnine often joked about how people underestimated him. He once said, "They keep asking, is he still alive?" But he always proved them wrong. In 2011, when Borgnine was 94, he received the Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award. This award celebrated his incredible 60-year career and his efforts to help others. Borgnine gave a humble speech, saying, "We are a privileged few who have been chosen to work in this field of entertainment." The ceremony showed clips from his best-known work, from his Oscar-winning performance in Marty to his funny role in McHale's Navy. It was a perfect way to honor all that he had achieved. Even in his final months, Borgnine stayed active. In May 2012, just 2 months before his death, he gave a lively interview at a fan convention. He shared funny and heartfelt stories about working with legends like Frank Sinatra and Betty Davis. In April 2012, he made his last public appearance to promote his final film, The Man Who Shook the Hand of Vicente Fernandez. At 95, he still had the charm and energy that made him a star. On July 8, 2012, Ernest Borgnine passed away at the age of 95 from kidney failure. He was surrounded by his wife and children. His death marked the end of an era, as he was one of the last surviving stars from Hollywood's golden age. Tributes poured in from across the world. Morgan Freeman called him a good friend and a fine actor. Tim Conway, his co-star from McHale's Navy, remembered him as one of the most honest people he had ever met. Even the U.S. Navy, where Borgnine had served for 10 years, honored him with a heartfelt